and we're here today. I'm back with Dr. Ron Ethelbein, and he's been uh, in a slog against the government. Government is trying to put him in prison, trying to convict him as a felon, and he saved hundreds of thousands of lives during COVID. He provided the ultimate treatment, monoclonal antibodies, and monoclonal antibodies, as we know, were just too effective. And the government took them away. And Dr. Elfenbein stood up to that. He stood up to the tyranny. And now he's being punished, or they're trying to punish him. So, can you give us an update on what's going on?
Yes. So first of all, it's great to be here, Mary. Thanks for having me on, and good morning to everybody. So the chief judge who adjudicated my case, we had a 3-week trial, and he wrote a 93-page opinion, basically overturning the jury verdict. So the jury found me guilty, but the judge who sat through the entire case, who was also the chief judge of the state of Maryland, he issued a 93-page opinion overturning the jury verdict, which is unprecedented, and basically tearing the government apart for having no evidence. And right before Trump was inaugurated, I was they appealed it. So the Biden DOJ did. So now I'm facing a new trial this August. And Pam Bondi, Attorney General Bondi, established a weaponization task force that basically looks at cases just like mine. I'm trying to get in touch with someone on the task force to look this case over because there's inertia, right? The case started under Biden, and the new Trump DOJ comes in, and they're just kind of they have thousands of cases, and it would already started, and they're just kind of it just keeps rolling. So I'm trying to get somebody to take an objective look at this to, number one, say, is this a just prosecution? And number two, is this a good use of taxpayer dollars? It's already been adjudicated. Like, why are we wasting taxpayer dollars? And why are you trying to destroy my life for a second time and my family's life? It just doesn't make any sense. So I'm trying to get a hold of Todd Blanche or somebody in on the weaponization task force to really take a look at this case because I believe I'm a whistleblower. And I think the case should be dropped.
Why do you think you're a whistleblower?
So as you said, Mary, we were the largest supplier of monoclonal antibodies in the state of Maryland. I was a very early adopter of them because I recognized how wonderful this technology is. And by the way, it's nothing new. This technology, I'm sure you know, has been around for 40 years or so, used in all sorts of other treatments. But when it came out for COVID, it really was the cure for COVID. It was a miraculous medicine. I know you used it a lot too. People would come in on death's door, and within a couple of hours, they were completely turned around. I mean, I've never seen anything like it in my life. And so we were the largest supplier. I was on Fox News, Newsmax, Sky News, CBS, whoever would have me all the time during COVID, talking about how wonderful this medicine was. And the Biden DOJ, or the Biden administration, excuse me, stopped it in December based on like ridiculous nonsense that didn't make any sense. So I went on Fox News and then Newsmax, and I called them out for it. I said, they're going to kill people. People are going to die because of this. And they eventually restarted the program, but then they started to take the emergency use authorizations away from the monoclonals. And there's a federal law apparently that, according to Secretary Kennedy, that anything that is shown to be effective, it basically puts the emergency use authorization of the COVID vaccines at risk. So what I was saying was this drug here, this monoclonal antibody, is a perfect cure for COVID. It will cure people, which it did, save thousands of lives, but that puts the EUA of the vaccine in direct risk because if there was an alternative medicine, the vaccine automatically apparently would lose its EUA. So I was blowing the whistle saying the government's shutting down this program, which is effective in saving people's lives, and they're going to kill people. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and you look at the timing, they took away monoclonal antibodies completely right when they mandated the shots, which I think was very purposeful. What's the significance of framing this case as a whistleblower case? How does that change things in a legal sense?
It does because on day one of Trump's administration, he issued it wasn't an executive order, but it was an executive action, and he said we're going to end weaponization of the government. And then on February 5th, Attorney General Pam Bondi issued a memo to the DOJ outlining o- establishing a weaponization task force and outlining 7 types of people who fit into that weaponization that they should be looking at. And number 7 is a whistleblower. And that's what I was doing. I was trying to save people's lives. People were dying. This medicine was wonderful. We were saving hundreds of people from either hospitalization or death. Like, I firmly believe that. I think the data supports me on that 100%. And the government was trying to stop it, which they did. And when I went on Fox News and then Newsmax and I called them out for it, I said, they're going to kill people. 4 months later, totally out of the blue, with no warning and no explanation, no nothing, I get indicted on healthcare fraud charges, which the chief judge of Maryland said was ridiculous. And he even said in a pretrial conference, he said, this looks like a case of, quote, shoot first and ask questions later, because it
Mhm.
was like very Stalin-esque. It was, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. It's exactly what happened. They went after me because I was public. I was the largest supplier of this stuff in the state of Maryland. My company was. And I was very outspoken, and they came after me for it.
And you were publicly commended, right, for your work during COVID. I mean, you received awards. Am I right?
Yes, so the politicians, they recognize what I was doing. The governor of Maryland personally gave me a citation for my work during COVID, and so did the state legislature. And then our state medical society named me its person of the year for all the work I did during COVID, and that came even after I got indicted, by the way.
Wow.
So, it was, yeah, it was pretty remarkable. But I think for me, like the most impactful thing was really saving people's lives. And we were seeing so many patients, and the government was making that into a bad thing, like we were trying to just make money. And yes, did money come? Of course it did, but that wasn't the prime motivator. If I could have, we went from 6 employees before COVID to and one site to 8 sites and over 300 employees during the height of the pandemic. If I could have hired 300 more people and opened up 8 more sites, I absolutely would have, because we would have saved many more people. We just didn't have the bandwidth.
Yeah.
But the government somehow made that into something nefarious, like we
Right.
were just trying to make money. I
Exactly.
mean, it's insane.
And I mean, I can attest. I saw the miracles as well, that you give people monoclonal antibodies, they'd wake up the next day 90% better. It was truly miraculous. It was I don't I did you have issues with side effects? I mean, I told patients, okay, you're going to feel a little bit worse before you feel better. Like a little war is going to go on in your body, and then you're going to wake up and feel like $1 million. But I never had anybody suffer serious side effects. I don't know what your experience was.
So I hired a friend of mine who's a pharmacist, and I hired him as an on call. So in case there were any, for exactly what you said, I had never run a monoclonal antibody infusion center before. I didn't even know how to do it. I had to basically, I mean, like, you're an ENT doctor, I'm an emergency medicine doctor. I don't think either of us had any past history of doing this kind of stuff, right? So we had to write the playbook as we went, figure it all out. So I wanted to make sure we were doing everything correct. So I hired a pharmacist to be on call in case there was a problem, you know, whatever. And I carried this thing 24/7. I lived off this thing. I didn't see my
Mhm.
family for basically 2 years because I was constantly on call, you know. But I'll tell you something, the pharmacist probably got called 3 times. We
Right.
infused thousands of people. And I don't think I ever got called about anybody who had a serious side effect. I mean, yeah, we'd have people, oh, it burns in my arm, because it's
Mhm.
basically an IV and you drip it in through the IV. And
Right.
but that's stuff you get when you infuse saline too. So nothing serious, no major problems. A guy called me um, out of the blue one night. I was putting my 3-year-old to bed, and he calls me, and I said, and he said, "Hi, so and so." I said, "Look, I don't have a lot of time. I'm putting my son to bed. What do you need?" And he's like, "Well, I own 7 assisted living centers, and my residents are dying by the truckload." I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying we're having a horrible number of people passing away or being hospitalized. I need monoclonal antibodies. Can you help me? And I said, "Of course I can help you." And he just paused, and I said, "Are you there?" And he said, "You're the 27th person I've called. Nobody could help me." And I said, "I'll tell you what. I will give your phone number to our operations manager. She'll call you first thing in the morning, and we'll arrange for you to get your whatever you need." That man, every single day, he bought a little bus. He was busing people from
Mm.
all of his sites to our infusion centers every single day until his bus driver went down with COVID. We infused that person. He got better, and then he started driving the van, And then he got COVID and he called me and I said, get your butt in the chair because we're going to infuse you. And he started arguing with me. I said, don't argue with me, get in the chair.
Right.
And he said an hour later he was better. And he's an elderly gentleman with lots of medical problems. And
Mhm.
he's a dear friend of mine now. We've become very good friends. And he swears to me that he says, every single person that they sent to the hospital died. He said every single person that got the infusion, he said some of them were over 100. He said every single one of them turned around miraculously and survived. Now that's an N of one. I get that. But it's anecdotal data. But regardless, he swears by that. He swears by it. He said, you saved every single person that we infused, and you said you saved my business. Your company saved my business.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what exactly is the government's problem with you? What are they trying to nail you on?
What's the problem with me? So they came after me for healthcare fraud, and they said that we were upcoding. And I mean, it's so ridiculous, the whole thing. So we basically, there's a chart, and the AMA puts out a chart for billing, and we decided early on that the right code to use was this thing called the level 4 E&M code, evaluation and management. So when you see a doctor, a nurse practitioner, or a PA, you bill what's called an E&M code, just because you get seen. That's what it is. And there's a reason that we picked level 4, because if you look at the chart, it makes perfect sense. And by the way, if you're wrong, you upcode or you downcode, both of which are illegal and both of which can get you into trouble. So you're like damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So I went through it. I made a good faith effort. I thought level 4 was the appropriate code. And I had a good reason for that. The government never asked me what that reason was. They just came after me with a sledgehammer and said, you're a criminal and we're going to indict you. They never gave me the opportunity to explain it. So they basically charged me with 5 counts of healthcare fraud for quote unquote upcoding. Now, the difference between a level 4, which is what we were billing, and a level 3, which is the next lower code, is about $50 on average. Okay, every insurance company pays different. So on average, I Googled it and it comes out to an average of about $50. So basically, the government is trying to throw me in jail for 50 years, okay, destroy my life, charge me millions of dollars in restitution, which of course I don't have, over $250.
Wow.
5 counts, $50 a piece, $250. And we saw over 100,000 patients in that time frame of the indictment. They looked at a total of 5 charts. 5, that was it. They never even had a professional coder look at those 5 charts. They just had government lawyers, prosecutors look at those charts. We hired a professional coder, and the professional coder looked at hundreds of charts and said they all looked like they were coded properly, except a couple of them may have actually been down coded, because we did send a couple of patients to the emergency room. That automatically makes them a level 5, and they weren't billed as level 5. But he said everything else looks good. Subsequently, we hired a second coder to look at the coding again. And this guy so the first coder was the former president of the ethics committee on the American Association of Professional Coders. So he's not some Yahoo.
Mhm.
The second coder is also a member of the American Association of Professional Coders, but this guy is hired by the DOJ to look for fraud. And he teaches DOJ people how to find fraud. And he
Right.
said, there's no fraud. And we sent that letter, his evaluation to the government, to the DOJ. They saw it, they looked at it, and like I don't know. I think we need to. We're all mystified, and we just need to find somebody who can get in touch with Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, and present my case to the Weaponization Task Force.
Well, yeah, it's funny. The Texas Medical Board, in their pursuit of me, was unable to come up with a single expert to testify against me. Who do they have? Do they have an expert saying that you deserve all this?
No, so it's a great question. So, as I said, they never even had a coder. So, just for the audience, so they understand, medical coding is complicated, right? It's not a simple
Mhm.
thing, and that's why there are people who do this for a living, professional coders.
Yeah, it's
They didn't even
crazy
hire a
for the whole
professional coder,
society. There's,
right?
I'm like, that's an odd society to belong to, but yes.
Yeah, yes, 100%. But but regardless, the government never even took the step to have a professional coder look at these charts. Their quote unquote expert was a guy who was an expert in Medicare. And he was so awful. The first day of trial, he gets up there. This is the first witness on the government side. They go first. And he was so horrible, knew nothing about anything, literally, that the judge told him to step down, sent him outside, excused the jury, told him to go back to the jury room, called us all up to the bench, started wagging his finger at the government and saying, what the hell are you doing? He said, and this is in the transcripts. People can see it for themselves. Where is the crime? That's what he said. Where is the crime? What the hell are you doing, government? And they said, oh, it's coming, judge, it's coming, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, you better show me something because I'm about ready to throw this case out right now. And this is day one, first witness. He was just completely, the term they use in the legal profession is impeached on the stand, meaning that he was totally devoid of any sort of credibility whatsoever. And the judge said that. He's like, your witness has no credibility. He doesn't know anything about anything. And people may be thinking, oh, well, it's cross-examination, and the lawyers, they use their sleazy lawyerly tactics, and nothing against lawyers, but it wasn't that. It was just facts. My lawyers were asking him facts, and he had no idea what he was talking about. He had to backtrack on multiple things. He had to admit, oh, I was wrong. I didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't read that. I don't know about the changes from COVID. I didn't read them. I wasn't aware. I mean, it went on and on and on. Like the judge was like, I've never seen anything like this before.
Well,
It's
and then
unbelievable.
you had a verdict. The jury ruled against you, but the judge disagreed with the jury. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that never happens, by the way. And it's actually, obviously that day that I was found guilty was the worst day of my life. I wanted just the earth to swallow me up and to die right then and there. It was just, I mean, talk about the worst thing that could ever happen to you. I mean, it was horrible. Um, but I think so everything that the government put out, like every one of their theories about what I was doing and why I was guilty, had been completely destroyed. So first it was we didn't spend enough time with patients, and that's in the indictment, by the way. Their own expert, the guy I was just talking about, that was so awful, he testified at trial that time is irrelevant. So they indicted me for not spending enough time for patients, which, by the way, I didn't see any of these patients. We had nurse practitioners and PAs do it. It wasn't even me seeing them. But he testified that one of their main points in the indictment didn't even matter. Time doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The government still indicted me for it. Number two, these were medically unnecessary tests. They didn't even talk about it at trial. The judge even pointed that out in his opinion. He said the government seems to have abandoned that theory because everybody who testified said yes, they were medically necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So so every one of their theories just got obliterated. So at closing, and this is crazy to me that the government gets to go last. So they get to rebut you. So they go first, then you go, and then they get to go again, which is crazy because they're bringing charges against you. You should get to go last, but that's not how it works. So I think they recognized that everything that they had said had been completely got shot down. So finally, their last theory was the prosecutor gets up there and he says two things. First, he said, jurors, you may be asking yourself, what level is appropriate? Level 3, level 4, level 2, which was the right one? He said, and this is, I'm paraphrasing, but this is what he said. He said, it doesn't matter. You don't need to know. All you need to know is that he's a criminal and he's wrong. And by the way, at trial, they never said why I was wrong, why level 4 was wrong. And they never said what the appropriate level was. They just said I was wrong, which is just mind boggling. Then he gets up there and says, jurors, the defense came up there and they had this expert and he showed you this chart and he talked about, the chart and the rules. And does it make common sense to you? Does any of this make common sense? It doesn't, because it's not common sense. You should use your common sense and you should vote that he's guilty.
Mm.
And of course, if we could have rebutted that, the obvious retort to that would be, hey, I called the IRS and said, you know what, I used my common sense to file my taxes. Like, there's no common sense in any of this stuff. And the
Right.
government wrote the rules. Now they're telling people to ignore the rules. And by the way, I think that one thing that's really important to point out, Mary, is the AMA. Okay, I'm not a member of the AMA. I don't support the AMA. I don't like their politics. They came to my defense and they wrote an amicus brief saying that I didn't break the rules that the government is accusing me of breaking. And what's remarkable about that is they wrote the rules. The AMA writes the CPT codes, the
Mhm.
codes that we're talking about. The AMA makes millions of dollars off of that every single year, hundreds of millions, actually. And they said that I didn't break the rules that the government is accusing me of breaking. And they wrote the rules. And so did the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons. They came to my defense. They also wrote an amicus brief and said the same thing. And and they're still coming after me. Like it's insane.
So what's the status now? What's the next step? You're waiting for another hearing, or what?
I'm waiting for a new trial in August,
A
and
new
I'm
trial in
trying
August.
to. It was the worst experience of my life going through that. I was so stupid. I was naive before my first trial. I was looking forward to it because now I'm going to get a chance to tell my story, and but it doesn't work like that. It's not, it's very difficult to win against the federal government. It's the United States of America versus you. Like,
Right.
it's very hard to win in that situation. It's nearly impossible, even when the facts are on your side, which they clearly are. And by the way, you asked before about the judge overturning this conviction. That's unheard of. And it actually, when the jury finds you not guilty, it means you're not guilty, right? The government didn't prove its case. But when the judge overturns a jury verdict and issues what's called a Rule 29 motion, he says that not only are you not guilty, but there was no evidence, and the case should never have been brought in the first place.
Hmm.
And he not only gave me the overturned the jury verdict, which again is unprecedented, but he did it in a 93-page opinion, which the Supreme Court opinions aren't even 93 pages. And he granted me a new trial. He specifically said in the opinion, in case the government chooses to appeal, because he was so sure that I didn't do anything wrong that he
Right.
wanted me to be as protected as possible.
So the government appealed, I take it?
Under the Biden administration, right before as they were packing their bags and leaving, they appealed it. So the ball would be rolling as Trump walks in the door.
Wow.
So they knew that it was like one last, stick it in your back kind of thing, because they knew they could get me right before Trump was inaugurated. They decided to do that. Yeah, yeah. And I want to point out, Rod Rosenstein, the former Deputy Attorney General and the former U.S. Attorney of Maryland. I didn't pay him anything. He doesn't work for me. I've never retained him. He put out a public statement saying that this case should never have been brought. It's on the Baltimore Banner, and that the Judge Bradar's opinion was I think the word he used was a tour de force, and it showed that this case, should have sent a message to the Biden DOJ that this was ridiculous. I mean, you just it's mind-boggling that this is still going on. Like, I don't understand it.
Do you have any political support? Anybody out there trying to get the word to Todd Blanche?
Um, I do. I've had a couple of calls. I don't want to mention any names, but a United States senator has reached out to me before, and I think you were very helpful in that regard. And then I spoke to the general counsel of somebody, of a secretary in the cabinet. His general counsel called me. So, I mean, I think so, but this kind of stuff works behind the scenes. You don't really know how it works.
Mhm.
I'm not asking for special favors. I'm not asking for like anyone to, dark room, smoke cigars and, drinking whiskey. I just backroom deals. I just want someone to take a look at this objectively and
Right.
say, this is stupid. It's unfair. It's unjust. It's un-American, and it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. I mean, this is costing millions of dollars for the government to come after me.
Yeah, way more than the crimes they're accusing you of. And fraud is the new buzzword, but the fraud that we're trying to uncover is people that are running fake patient schemes where no one's getting treated, and they're running all these. It's not it's not up
Yeah.
coding or down coding. I mean, the coding. Yeah, it's one of the reasons I don't contract with Medicare is this
Yeah.
coding business, because I mean, how scary! It's always a guessing game when you mark that code. It's always a guessing game, and
Yeah.
it's incredibly scary that they can come after you. They want to put you in prison for 50 years, right?
Yes, and destroy my life, and take away my medical license, and bankrupt me. Um,
Right.
which essentially they've already done, right? I mean, this whole process has destroyed me already. Like, it's made me a shell of my former self. Like, it's miserable, it's horrible. And to your point, Mary, healthcare fraud typically is what you just said. It's patient billing for stuff that doesn't get done, you know, or sending people crutches or something and billing $600 and they didn't need crutches.
Mhm.
That's DME, durable medical equipment. That's a big source of healthcare fraud. But the government never alleged, and they can't prove, of course, that these patients didn't exist, because they did. In fact, they called them at trial. They called three of them, and they all testified. Oh yeah, I got seen, I got tested, I saw a provider, I had my vital signs taken. Like, how does that help them? Like, these are real people. Every single patient that we saw was a real person. At worst, what they're accusing me of is just what you said, a simple coding dispute, which is not a criminal action. I didn't do anything criminal. I didn't have any criminal intent. I didn't, want to rip off the government. I did what I thought was appropriate. They never gave me the opportunity to explain that before they came after me with a sledgehammer, which is why I believe that this is all political. And the timing certainly makes it seem political, because I went on Fox News. I made a big deal about the fact that they were going to kill people. 4 months later, with no warning and really no investigation, they just come after me. And to that point, they didn't have the charts. Like I had the charts. They're proprietary. So I hadn't given them to the government because I hadn't received a subpoena.
Mhm.
So they didn't have them until after they indicted me. Now, for your listeners, the only way you can know what appropriate coding is to look at the charts because it's all based on what's in the charts. And you don't turn those charts over to anybody unless they're asked for. Like when you submit a bill to any insurance company, you just submit the person's name and a bunch of codes. If the company or Medicare wants to look at the charts, they have to request them. That didn't happen until after they indicted me. So how can you claim that there's fraud without even looking into the charts?
All right.
Like it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'm sorry. And this is a warning to all the physicians out there. Be very careful about how you code. And maybe you don't want to contract with
Yes.
the government because they could come after you and try to throw you in prison if you make coding errors or what you didn't even make. I mean, I've seen you've walked me through it and you didn't even make a coding error, but they're accusing you of that. But even if you did make a coding error, you shouldn't be, convicted of a
Right.
felony and thrown in prison and bankrupted. And I'm very sorry you're going through all this. And thank you for saving all those lives for the monoclonal antibodies. They weren't controversial. They worked. And then for some reason, the government took them away. So
Yeah. And the to your point, like first of all, saying thank you for all that, but if on par, we probably saved the system hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of all the lives that we saved and all the people that we tested and we said, all right, you got to go home and quarantine and all the rest of the stuff. I, it's mind-boggling. They're coming after me for $250 when I saved hundreds of millions of dollars. Like again, this doesn't make any sense except looking at it through the lens of politics.
mhm.
That's why I think the weaponization task force really needs to look at my case. And you know what? This could be a win for the government, like for the Trump administration. They're looking for cases like this. They have all this fraud, in Minnesota and everywhere else, in California, billions of dollars in fraud. That's real fraud
Mhm.
and they're coming after me. And just the other thing I want to say is that the Biden DOJ had all that Epstein evidence in their hands for years, and they did nothing with it. They didn't prosecute a single person, and they didn't release any of it. Instead, they chose to use their resources to come after me for saving people's lives and for speaking out about how wonderful this drug was, this monoclonal antibody. And you know, the monoclonal was actually very quickly after they reinstated the program in January of 2022 they started to pull the EUAs for the monoclonals. Did you know that?
Oh yeah.
They
Yeah.
took them off the market. Yeah.
Mhm.
So the fact that they were working was too much for the government because it put the EUA for the emergency use authorization for the vaccine in its crosshairs and made it at risk and they couldn't have that. So they had to take the monoclonals off the market. Just like they destroyed hydroxychloroquine, just like they
Right.
destroyed ivermectin.
Right.
They had to
And
destroy the monoclonals.
And one other little factor, you could not get the vaccine. You had to wait 3 months after getting monoclonal antibodies to get the vaccine. So we had
Hmm.
people that would actually use that as a stall tactic. They would
Smart.
be like, I need my card saying I can't get the vaccine for 3 months. They were, and I think that was part of the reason too, because they mandated those shots right around the time they took away monoclonal antibodies. So I think that was part of it as well. But
Yeah.
well, I am hopeful that this will get into the hands of the right people. Please, if you're out there watching it, please share it so we can get this story out there. This man does not deserve to go to prison. He does not deserve the treatment he's gotten. And I am personally vouching for him. And I hope
Thank you.
everybody will share this and send it to your representatives who might know Todd Blanche and be able to help. So thank you, Ron, and keep us posted. I hope we'll have you on again soon with some good news.
Yeah, God willing, yes. Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. And Mary, keep fighting the good fight on your side too. You have, your issues that the governments came after you too. So like, you know exactly what I'm going through.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, I don't think I'm facing jail time. But gosh, yeah, it's to defend yourself is very time consuming and expensive. Do you have a Give, Send, Go that people can help out in that regard?
I do. So if you go to the website, dropthecase.com, Their Give Send Go is on there. I also have my personal website, ronelfenbein.com. It's on both of those sites, but dropthecase.com is probably the easiest one. And there's a Give Send Go. Thank you for bringing that up. And if anybody can donate, I'd very much appreciate it, because the legal bills have been in the millions of dollars, and which I don't have. The government seems to think you're like Tony Soprano and you have, stacks of hundreds hiding in your air filter, but I don't, and I never did. I mean, I drive a Hyundai, my wife drives a beat up Subaru, so it's not like we were living high on the hog when this was going on. I mean, we were out there trying to save people's lives and fighting as much as we could. So if people can give, I'd very much appreciate it, because the legal bills have almost bankrupted us. I mean, thank God my wife is a pediatric oncologist. She treats kids with cancer, and she's does bone marrow transplants for kids. And thankfully she had a job, but I couldn't work for 2 years because of this, and it nearly destroyed us. So if people
Well,
can give, I'd very much appreciate it.
and when you were working, and I can attest to this as well, because I was working 7 days a week, all day, all week, nonstop. It was brutal. So you served your community more than most people did, and thank you for doing that. Go to dropthecase.com, and please, even if it's just $5, if everybody pitched in a little bit, it could make a big difference. And again, please share this, send it to your representatives. We need to help Ron Effelbaum. We need to get this case dropped. It's the right thing to do. And we're hoping that somebody will listen to this and help. So thank you, Ron.
Yeah. Thank you, Mary. Thanks, everybody.
And I'm having those technological problems that we discussed earlier. So I'm going to have to hop off the screen and turn this off in a weird way, but we'll bear with me, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.